Good morning. My name is Alison Mears. I'm the Director of Healthy Materials Lab. Thank you again for coming. I echo what John Sarah said. It's my distinct pleasure to introduce Maya Halden. Maya is a high school student and climate activist from Phoenix, Arizona. She spent a month last summer working as a researcher in the lab. We got to know her quite well. We asked her to take a deep dive into paint. Not the most interesting topic for a lot of people, but she took it on with rigor and integrity and created this amazing research project for us, really giving us background knowledge that we use in the lab and that we still use today and is a foundation for our understanding of how we can think about paint and then transform that material into a better product. She used her background in plastics reduction and knowledge of harmful chemicals to inform that work. She's clear-sighted, she's committed to making global environmental change, and her voice is a critical one in this conversation that we're having today. She and her peers are directly confronting the environmental problems that they have inherited. We're honored that she's taken time out of school to join us today, and she'll share her perspective with us. So thank you, Maya. Welcome.
"17 years ago, I was born onto a planet that had an inherited expiration date. A time at which there was a point of no return, a point where the damage that we have done as a population to our planet becomes irreversible, becomes a problem so great that none of us are able to change it anymore. And every day, I, those around me, and all of you in this room become more and more aware of the urgency of this issue. Because our climate is in danger, our planet is in danger, and that includes all of us and every animal, every organism that lives on this earth. Those factors that go into climate change, most notably CO2 emissions, carbon dioxide, going into our ozone, is a really daunting thing to imagine. It's a problem on such a large scale that it can be really difficult to imagine how that fits into our lives and how every action we take creates that issue. And as someone who has not been on this planet for a very long time, but has inherited the issues of everyone who came before me, that task seems at times unfairly put onto those my age and those of you who are here and will be here for the next 40 years until we reach this point of no return. And that's a problem that seems large to solve, but we have no choice but to solve it because the survival of ourselves and those around us and our entire planet depends on it. Growing up as the daughter of a biologist and an environmental engineer, I've always been aware of how everything we do affects our planet. At about 7 or 8 years old, I learned how to read the bottles of soaps and of school supplies and everything else I purchased to look for toxic chemicals, to look for little recycling signs with the correct number to make sure that it could be put in the correct place. And I know that's not the childhood that everyone has had, but that's definitely shaped how I see the world. And that awareness of every single thing that we do, every single product that we use, is really important at a time like this, because we have to remember that every small action that we take has a greater reaction to the planet. Someone asked me about a month ago what it was about my generation that makes us uniquely qualified to solve the climate problem. That's quite a question to ask, and when I thought about it, I realized I don't even think there is a skill or a certain set of skills or knowledge that I have or that I grew up with that makes me qualified to fix the climate. I think it's a matter of timing. Me and others my age do not have a choice on whether we want to take action or not. Because that point of no return, that expiration date, is estimated to be somewhere between the year 2025 and the year 2040, and that's pretty close in our immediate future. So if we don't take action now, we don't have a future. And that's a large responsibility for somebody as young as myself and others my age to take on. Really, it's a huge responsibility for anyone of any age to take on, the future of the planet. But at the same time, that's something every human throughout all of history has taken on, because each of us leaves an impact on this planet that creates the future. And in the past, we've made a lot of poor choices about that future. As Winona LaDuke spoke last night, she's talked about the wealth of bad ideas that we've made. And that's something that I hope to work to reverse. And to reverse into good ideas, not just to stop the bad ones. So because of that sense of timing, because of that sense of urgency, it's become extremely necessary that me and others my age make drastic steps to change, especially for those who stand in the way of change, those who don't believe that the climate is changing, and those who are not ready to change their lifestyle to allow for more lives in the future. So that change in lifestyle, I think, is one of the biggest steps to overcome as we strive to change how we look at climate. The lifestyles we live right now are based very much on fossil fuels. That's how things come to us with speed. That's how we have single-use products. That's how we have a consumerist environment amongst each other that is not sustainable in any way. That has to change if we look to have a better future. We may have to lose some of our quality of living to allow for the quality of life for those after us. And that can be a little bit difficult to face, but it's necessary because we're living in a way that we should not be living right now. And that's definitely not something we can continue to do in the future. Some of those challenges we face, climate deniers, those who think that we do not have as much of an impact as we actually have, they do have some strength in numbers, but the strength in our numbers is greater. The strength of those who are willing to work towards a better future and the energy within us is so much greater than the energy within those who don't want to change. That force of change is so great, it's caused so many wonderful things to happen in the past. Every great movement has started with a group of people who want change for the better. And I know that we can get there. The idea that the government plays a really big role in how we see our climate is definitely true, but at the same time, we have to step forward first before we can expect our policymakers to follow us. It's a lot easier for us to make a small change in our lives together to move forward than it is for Congress to decide to put a bill into place to protect an area from an oil pipeline or from a new kind of toxic plastic that's in our world. So we as consumers have the power to choose who gets the profit from our purchases. And that's how we have power over the companies who are run by profits, who are run by money, and who do not care about the impact they leave as long as they have enough money in their pockets. Because we're the ones who put the money in their pockets, and we need to remember that. Every decision we make, every product we buy, every time we purchase something from with a certain name or with a certain chemical, we choose to support that. And we all need to make a conscious choice to step away from that. The idea of changing the climate is something that can be hard to deal with, but we have to realize we've already changed the climate. We've done it for the worse, but we can do it for the better as well, because we have already changed the climate. And that belief can be a little bit difficult to have. As someone who's around teenagers all day, I'm aware that it doesn't always seem like a hopeful group of people to have, but at the same time, there is still that drive, there is still that awareness in us that we need to strive forward and we definitely need to make a change. And that belief that we really can create change, it's not always there, but at the same time, I come to an event like this and I see so many wonderful people who are dedicated to working across disciplines and to educating others while still gaining an education themselves on how we can solve an issue like this. And that hope comes back again. Because it's not always the first thing we think about, that hope that we need to have, but at the same time, I believe it's always there. Because none of us has truly accepted that humanity will end because of an environmental crisis, because we are still here, and we are still fighting to make a change to prevent that. We don't want to settle for a limited future. Over the summer, my dad was writing a book, and he let me read one of his drafts, and at the end of one of his chapters, he asks a question to the reader. A question that really stopped me and made me think. What is the number of generations that we are okay with leaving this planet for? How many generations is enough to make us feel good about what we've done? And when I read that question, I thought, well, I don't know how many generations we're still going to have, because looking at the planet right now, I can't even be sure we'll have more than a few. But then I realized that as somebody who's on this planet and hopes to be on this planet in the future in a healthy and productive way, I don't have a choice in how many generations I leave this planet for. I only have the option of leaving this planet better than I came here, to create more generations than I can imagine. The only responsible way to handle our resources, to handle the amazing gift that this planet is to us, is to leave it for as many generations as we possibly can. It's not responsible to settle for 3 or 4 or 50 generations, because we shouldn't think in terms of an end. We should think in terms of an eternity, a continuation of what we have here. So I challenge you all to strive for that eternity, for that idea of an unlimited future, because we can make that and we can leave that for this planet. And the conversations we're going to have here today are absolutely the first step towards that taking on that responsibility of truly leaving this planet as healthy as we possibly can, and to reverse the poor decisions that have been made before us, or even in our lifetimes. I have the strength to believe that we can change, and I think everyone in this room has that strength as well. And I think that as long as we have that faith in ourselves to change our future, then we certainly have the strength to work towards that better future. Thank you.
Wow, okay, maybe we could go home now. Maya, thank you so much. That your hope, your infectious call for change is, I think is gonna fuel us all. Thank you.